Hi, this is Alex from devstories.eu, OpenAPI and Swagger Ecosystem, episode 16 of 19. Your API documentation takes 10 seconds to load, and every time an engineer wants to show a specific endpoint to a colleague, they have to write out manual instructions on how to scroll down and find it. The default settings are meant to be changed. Let us tweak the interface so your developers find exactly what they need in milliseconds. This is all about customizing Swagger UI. Before tweaking anything, we need to draw a hard line. The settings we are discussing do not go inside your OpenAPI specification document. These are runtime configurations. You are modifying the interface that renders the document, not the document itself. You inject these parameters in one of two ways. If you are hosting the UI files yourself, you pass a configuration object into the Swagger UI JavaScript constructor when the web page loads. If you are using the official Swagger UI Docker image, you pass these exact same properties directly to the container as environment variables. The most fundamental setting tells the interface where to find your spec. If you have one API, you use the parameter called URL, singular, and pass it a string path. But if you have a microservice architecture with multiple distinct APIs, you use the parameter URLs, plural. You pass it an array containing objects, each with a name and a link. This automatically generates a drop-down menu in the top bar of the interface, allowing the user to switch between different API definitions seamlessly. Now, consider a massive enterprise API with hundreds of paths and complex data models. If Swagger UI tries to render all of that on screen at once, the browser will freeze. The parameter that controls this is doc expansion. By default, it is set to the word list, which expands all the top-level tags but hides the operation details. You can change it to full, which expands absolutely everything on the page. However, to save load time on a massive API, you want to set doc expansion to none. This forces the interface to load completely collapsed. It saves significant memory and renders instantly, letting the user open only what they actually need. Once the user finds what they need, they will want to share it. By default, clicking through operations in Swagger UI does not change the browser address bar. If you set the deep linking parameter to true, the interface appends a hash fragment to the URL every time a user expands an endpoint or tag. Your developers can copy that exact URL and send it to a colleague, dropping them precisely on a specific operation instead of the top of the page. Here's the key insight. If your documentation exists primarily to act as a sandbox, you want to reduce friction. Normally, a user has to click a button labeled Try It Out on an operation to unlock the input fields. If you set the Try It Out flag to true, those input fields are active the moment the operation is expanded. The user can just type and execute without that extra click. Customizing Swagger UI at runtime gives you the power to shape the documentation experience around the user intent, transforming a generic rendering into a high-performance tool tailored to your team. Thanks for listening. Take care, everyone.